Lord Jesus Christ.
Lord forever.
Good morning.
I know today the hymns reflect the unmercenary healers of our great church. But we also celebrate today the prophet Hosea from the Old Testament. The prophet Hosea was somebody that God instructed something very, very strange, but also very, very challenging. He had instructed him to go get a woman, and I quote, of whoredom, and have children of whoredom with her. What does that mean? Why did he have to do that? The prophet Hosea, out of all the other prophets, really understood the plight of what God was going through to the most of his ability. He married a woman named Gomer, and during the time when he was married to her, at some point, she's found with child, but guess what? It's not her child. It's not his child. She has the baby again, she gets pregnant, not his child. And then the third time she leaves, he goes and finds her with child. And at one point, as she's gone, he goes and finds her. God tells him to go and look for the woman and bring her back to his home. And he finds her. He finds her in a marketplace being sold. And what does he do? He buys her back and brings her home. Over and over and over again, the prophet Hosea goes and gets this woman and brings her home again. Why is it so important in the short book? It's about 14 chapters, but the book is rather short. But the whole idea behind what was going on, and I bring this up today, and that's why the reading reflects in the epistle reading that St. Paul is writing to the Romans. He writes about Hosea, and he writes about Isaiah, and he writes about some of these prophets because St. Paul too understands. He too was one of the lost of the children of Israel. He may have not been a person that was worshiping other gods, but he was definitely worshiping the law. And why, again, does God instruct Hosea to go and get Gomer in the first place? Because that is the understanding of the children of Israel with the people that are against God most of the times. Because they went and prostituted themselves to the other gods of the land. They were prostituting themselves with the gods that were sacrificing children and were having sexual immorality and all the temple prostitution of male and female with other male and female people within that land. The people were trying so hard to balance their life with the law and to balance their life with the spirituality that was affecting them in poison-like circumstances with the land. And God says to him, I don't want this. The people are supposed to be completely faithful to me. The people are supposed to be completely faithful to the Creator. This is what we must understand with Hosea. Because Hosea, if you understand what he went through, now you understand what we go through as Christians as well. Because the same thing happens today. Nothing has changed. There are many people who are calling themselves Christians. There are many people who call themselves holy, and that they're farthest from it. They're the farthest from being the example of who Christ is. I'm among one of them. I am a wretched person, and I need God more than anybody else. I need Him because I realize the depth of my depravity. It's an abyss of sinfulness. And I go to God, and I humble myself to the best of my ability. I pray to the best of my ability. I love the Lord to the best of my ability, and I rely on His willingness to change me because I am willing to be changed. St. Paul, he talks about how can the pottery tell the potter, how can the person tell the Creator who he's supposed to be? We have that happening so much today. How many times have you heard through all the people that are struggling with transgenderism that's saying, I was just born in the wrong body, right? I've heard it many, many, many times. Many times. And what is going on in people's minds that they feel like God had made a mistake with them. How hurt they must be, how wounded they must be, what is going on in their lives with their families and everything else that's going on in their lives that they feel like God made a mistake. But again, God says, who are you to question me? God created us fearfully and wonderfully. He created us the way we were intended to be. Then as time goes on, the enemy comes along and he tries so hard to inject us with this venom. He injects us all with venom. He injects us all with his hard-heartedness and this selfishness and this callousness towards the rest of the world. But Hosea, he was this example. He went to that marketplace, bought his wife back, and brought her home and loved her. Despite all the fact that whatever she did, he loved her. And he cared for her, and he treated her the way he was supposed to treat her, no matter what she did. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I found my wife pregnant with another guy, that's a big, huge pill to swallow. That's very hard, right? I mean, look at 75, 80% of the divorce rate today. We can't even get through our marriages because people are being mean to us, let alone having adultery. But that's what we're supposed to do. Because again, we must understand that God is the one coming to us. God is the one coming to the world in his incarnate form, and to be able to come into the world to ransom us from our slavery to sin and death. He shows us the way by showing us what we must do. And we must too be long-suffering. We must too be loving people to the people that are wounding us. Right? And oftentimes we sit in our churches and we think to ourselves, let's fix the world outside, but the last person we want to fix is the person inside. We first must fix people as saying Nectarios. When you come here, you also must not look to other people that you point at and say, oh, that person is dressed incorrectly, that person has tattoos, that person has long hair, that person. You know why so many people leave the church? Because of that attitude. But when you start to love people, and when you start to understand them through your own experiences, the mercy that you have is the mercy that has been given you. And then therefore you have to exhibit that mercy to other people. Because every one of us have been wounded. Every one of us have been betrayed at some point. Jesus, when he was there on that plateau, when he was feeding those 5,000 people, it said at the end that there was 12 baskets left over of broken pieces of bread. There was so much abundance that God left over some. That's the apostles, right? The 12 apostles that go out into the world to share that good news, to share the bread of life with other people. And therefore, if we are doing the same thing, we're going to go out there. How many times have you read in the lives of the saints, these holy unmercenaries in these today, but how many times have you read in the lives of the saints where people are taken to lands far away and you think to them, oh man, that must be terrible for them. And they get put into prison. That must be terrible for them. But while they're in prison, you know what happens? Their light shines. That beacon shines in the prison and the people start looking at them. And then when they go out and the torturer starts to try to torture them, deny Christ, or we're going to do this. They cut off hands, they cut off feet, they cut off tongues, they cut out ears, they pluck out eyes. They cut off women's breasts. All the tortures that you can imagine to get people to deny Christ happens. And you know what happens? The torturers, like St. Paul says today, right? If you go back and you look at all the Old Testament, you look at Pharaoh, right? Pharaoh, Moses comes to Pharaoh, let my people go. It's still the same message, by the way. The world is the Pharaoh. Let my people go. Pharaoh says, I will not let your people go. And what happens? Plague. Now, each one of those plagues, if you really want to think about it, the Egyptians worshipped a pantheon of gods. And each one of those plagues, you know what it attacked? A different god. Every one of those plagues were attacked because every one of those plagues that happened attacked one of the gods that they revered so much. And as Moses was going there, the first couple plagues, the Pharaoh just had his heart hardened. And then at some point, when the magicians couldn't do anything else, you know what happened? He would go and get Moses, and he would say, lift up this curse. Moses would do it because God allowed the curse to be lifted, the plague to be lifted, and that as soon as that happened, what was the response of Pharaoh? His heart became hardened again at the mercy of God. It was the mercy of God that allowed Pharaoh's heart to be hardened, because he could not acknowledge that God was God, because he thought himself to be God. Over and over and over again. And when the people of Israel were released, they went into the world, they went into the promised land. What were they supposed to be? To be separate. But again, they become like they were children of whoredom. And they were having more children of whoredom. And they were doing all the things that God commanded them not to do. And St. Paul, again, he talks about it. Who are you, the pot? Who are you to call the potter anything else other than creator? Who are you? We are needing to go to God and understand the things that he does in our life is for us. He does not do anything to us. He's not the cruel person sitting in the heavens with a magnifying glass trying to burn off our feelers. One of my favorite scenes in Bruce Almighty. But what do we have and what happens though, right? We start to get our hearts hardened because we end up looking at the situation of what's going on, and instead of focusing on our Creator, we start to whoredom ourselves to the world. We fall into drugs, we fall into violence, we fall into crime, we fall into all these things, all those things trying to find a way to satisfy a hunger. All of us have that hunger, by the way. All of us have that hunger that is so deep within us from the beginning of time. But that's why King David says, create in me a clean heart, O God. You're the only one that can do it. You're the only one that can create in me a heart that is needing to yearn for you. It is a heart that is burning for you. And that's what we have to remember. The love that Hosea had for that woman is the same love that God has for every single one of us. And he meets us all where we're at. Because if you're here today and you're listening to this sermon and you're here at Liturgy, you know what God has done for you? He's given you a chance to give you one more day to repent. One more day has been given you for you to come to God, to fall onto your knees, to humble yourself, and to go before God and say, I need you. Because you are the only one that can create in me a new heart. A new heart. St. Paul understood it. And he said, when he was talking about the people of Israel, he said that the people of Israel were given the law to be shown the way, and they couldn't find it. But the pagans, the people, the Gentiles, they were the ones that found by faith the faith that was given to them. They found it by faith. They accepted the message. And then they went into the world and they showed the world. How many soldiers do we have as martyrs that denied their existence as soldiers, threw off their swords and their armor, and went to God and said, you are my Lord and my King, my Emperor. You are everything to me. When God starts to harden the heart, know that it's for a reason. Because God does what he can in his power, which is unlimited, to get people to the place where they need to be. And if you resist it, if you reject it, then it's on you. Because God gives every single one of us an opportunity. And it's a rare opportunity, by the way. Because as this world gets more hard and more callous and more broken and more sinful, the beacons of light need to shine even more brightly. because we need to be the people that are going out there and showing the world who God is through our lives. And we have to worry about changing what's in here and what's in here before we go out into the world to change anything else. Let us glorify and praise the name of the Lord today as we celebrate the unmercenaries and the prophet Hosea, who shows us this beautiful example of the love of God for his people. We ask this in your name. Amen.